How's it going? Welcome to Love of Stories, a channel dedicated to spreading the love of stories, especially the lesser seen ones. This is First Impressions, where I shine a light on self-published stories because, let's face it, writing's damn hard, and for those of you who have made it to the finish line, you deserve to have your hard work seen at the very least. So, week 1, video 1, I've picked out a book from the Kindle shop to read and review, but that doesn't have to be the only place I find works. If you know someone who has self-published a story, or have done so yourself, let me know in the comments or get in touch with the email in the description. Alright, enough stalling, let's get into it. I'll get started and then go into what the format will be and how things are gonna go, alright? This is Dual Fires by J.L. Anderson. I don't know why I picked this one to kick things off with, it just caught my eye and was within my criteria. Ready? Chapter 1, Rising Shine. Alright, press up. How many of you thought I was actually going to read the whole thing on here? That would be a lot of time that I don't think any of us have, but I will read the story on my own time. For these videos, I'm going to read through the first 5 chapters, like you can almost see in the background, and try to guess the ending. This is just something I've done since I was a kid, and it has more to do with seeing how hilariously wrong I am, rather than any sort of commentary on the author or the story itself. In the future, I'd like to use these chapter 1 through 5 breaks to answer any questions in the comments or talk about what's coming up in the future or anything else that comes to mind. After hitting chapter 6, I'll pass over to my past self, who will then break down what he's read so far and impressions of the stories, characters, plot, that sort of thing. Speaking of, I think we're coming up to that point, so I'll catch y'all at the end. Alright, well, that was a very interesting read. So let's get the technical stuff out of the way first. I think the story, it started off a little rocky, but it picked up pace very quickly, and it became a much easier read going forward. It flows well, there's good structure to it, and it's just an easy read, basically, was what I'm trying to say. Now, for a small negative, I'm not the adverb police here, but it gets a little heavy. There's entirely too many per page. I would suggest maybe removing some of the ones that are entirely unnecessary, or trying to revise the ones that are already there. 1 or 2 here and there, no big deal. I'm not Stephen King, I'm not going to harp on that. But if it's prevalent, that makes it a bit, it makes it seem a bit amateurish, which, by the way, this is self-published. Of course it's going to be amateurish. That's the whole point. That's my phone. But, just for your own practice, what you can do is try to substitute these adverbs for a different way of writing the sentence. And if it happens to be, if it makes it so that the sentence itself becomes bloated, too many words and whatnot, then don't worry about it. Just remove it or try something else, right? It's not that big of a deal. It doesn't actually detract from the story, I don't think, because of how well it flows. All right, so let's get into the actual story. So let's talk about the characters. We have Guyver, or Giver. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm just gonna go with Guyver. He is one of the primary protagonists. He's arrogant, he's full of himself, he's in his late teens, so that kind of makes sense. We have Guyla, Guyver's mother, who's a doctor. Laren, Guyla's father, who's a researcher that focuses on Dark Breather Society. More on what the that means later. Hessen, Guyver's best friend and a bumbling sort of air breather. Liza, don't really know much about her other than she's a soldier within the light breather forces who was just promoted to be a general. That's pretty much all we know about her. Jacob, or Jakob, a higher ranking official in the light breather forces who takes charge of Liza's training. And then we have Green Light Dabib, Purple Light Vincent, Red Light Talon, and White Light Octavia. These 4 that we know of so far are part of the Quorum. The Quorum is sort of the governing body of the light breathers, and they sort of control the military forces, the Lightbreather military forces. All right, so let's talk about the setting and what all of these crazy ass words that I just said mean. This world, which I don't think I've seen the name of yet, is wild. In this world, there is no sunset or sunrise controlling the day and night cycle. Instead, it's you know what? Let me just have the book explain it, because I think they do a pretty good job. I think it was here. Yeah, right here. So, okay. So it says, light legend told of a time when giant light-infused rocks controlled the night cycles and day cycles from the sky. Nowadays, light fire simply oozed into dark when it was time for the next day cycle, and vice versa. Wild. So, I don't know about y'all, but this reminds me of Vincent van Gogh's painting, the Starry Night painting. I think it's called Starry Night. Starry Night painting. But imagine, if you will, the sky, your day and night cycle is just two massive infernos. One that is bright, golden, brilliant fire, and the other one that is, void, dark, purple, blackish color. You know how it goes. Just warring in the sky, and that's your day and night cycle. One side wins, then the other side wins, and that's how it goes. Insane. Very cool concept. I thought it was a really awesome visual. Now, in this world, people are classified into three groups. There are the light breathers, the dark breathers, and the air breathers. Air breathers are, they're basically normal humans, right? They're like you and me. They don't have any special powers. They're sort of like the dregs of society. The air breathers, which at this point in the story, what I know about them is that they live in this place known as the Interchange Zone, which is just a battlefield that the light breathers and dark breathers fight on. It's a ruin where this sort of power struggle happens, and the air breathers sort of live there. They die there. Nobody actually gives a shit about them, and when like one house gets destroyed, they just move to another house in the same zone. I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know what's going on there, but it's wild. So then you have the light breathers. Light breathers are taller, slimmer versions of air breathers, still human, but these people can harness the power of light fire. Now, light fire, which during the daytime when the light fire takes over in the sky, is enhanced during the daytime. With light fire, characters like our main character Guyver, he can grant sort of powers. He can infuse the light fire into objects or people to make them faster, to make them lighter, and to make them happier, to make them more positive. It actually is there's a mental aspect to it, and an emotional aspect to it as well. And these people, a bit self-righteous, a bit full of themselves, all of them, which I'm pretty sure is the same over on the dark breather side, but we haven't seen anything about the dark breather side. So the dark breathers can harness the power of dark fire. So they're pretty much the direct opposite of the light breathers. They're shorter and stockier than air breathers, and their power is amplified during the nighttime. Dark fire, what it can do is it can make people physically heavier, physically stronger, and it can give them negative thoughts and emotions. So the exact opposite of what light fire can do. These are the people of the world. This is the state of the world as is currently, and just like how in the sky, light and dark are at constant war, these people are also constantly at war, which I guess moves into what the plot is. So the light breathers and dark breathers have been at war for over 1,000 years, with air breathers caught in between. 1,300 years prior to the start of the story, there was a, I'm gonna say the P word. I know everyone hates the P word, but I'm gonna say it. There was a prophecy given to both sides that spoke of this person being born called the Dual Breather, somebody who can harness the power of both light and dark. And to the light breathers, this person will lift up the light and crush the dark. And to the dark breathers, this person will lift up both light and dark. So a little bit of a hint to towards the sort of the societal mentality here for each side. This story at this point follows mostly Guyver, as he is now a soldier with the Light Breather forces. He's rebellious. He doesn't really listen to what they say. He's sort of got his own agenda, because as it turns out, when he was younger, the Quorum did something to his father. It's implied that they killed him because of the research he was doing into Dark Breathers. We don't know. It happened off screen, so he might be alive. He's probably alive. But he's sort of continuing his father's research under the guise of being a Light Breather soldier and just going out and getting Dark Breather artifacts, trying to figure out what's going on. His whole thing is that whenever the Dual Breather shows up, he wants to be the most powerful Light Breather, so that the Dual Breather can rival the Dual Breather. He's like I said before, he's full of himself. So at this point in the story, the Light Breathers have just won a particular battle, but the Dark is taking over. So now the Light Breathers are retreating, the Dark Breathers are regrouping, and we're at a point where Guyver has snuck into the enemy encampment, or an enemy encampment, and stolen an artifact and is returning back to his encampment when he gets captured. And when he gets captured, this whole thing goes on where someone from somewhere infuses him with Dark Fire, which makes him stronger, and combined with his Light Fire makes him incredibly fast, which basically turns him into Superman for like 10 minutes, right? So he takes out all of his captors and he runs away. That's where chapter 5 ends. Wild. That a lot happened in the beginning of this, and I think it does a pretty good job, the author does a pretty good job of setting up what the world is, what's going on, and still leaving that element of mystery to like what is actually going on, right? Personally, I'm interested to see like if there's an explanation for this whole light fire versus dark fire in the sky, like what happened to these infused rocks that controlled the night cycle and day cycle, right? There was something happened to change the state of the world. What was that? I'm excited to see what this Dual Breather concept is. I have a guess at the end of this. I'm going to give a guess as to what's happening at the end, but I could be completely wrong, and hopefully I am completely wrong. I'm excited to see what this Liza character is all about. We don't really know anything about her. She's just become a general. She's kind of a badass. She beats up all the dudes. We've all heard the trope. And I want to know what's going on with the air breathers, like why they are how they are, like what determines whether or not you're a light breather or dark breather, things like that. Hopefully those are in the story. They might not be. This might be a part 1, although I have no idea. I haven't looked any further than this book, so I don't know. So yeah, those are my first impressions. That's where the story's going. I think it's gonna be a very interesting read. I'm definitely gonna finish this later. And I suggest for anybody who's also interested or piqued their interest, go get this book. It's on Kindle Unlimited, so you can pick it up, you can read it. Leave an honest review, seriously. Or if you do end up reading it, leave an honest review. I will do the same thing. I'll leave a link to the actual book down below in the description, in the description. And we'll go from there. So hopefully you enjoyed this. It's a bit scatterbrained because this is the first time I'm doing this, so I don't have a structure. I just wrote down a couple of things and I'm talking off the top of my head, if you couldn't tell. So, my guess at what the heck's going on. I think this whole concept of the dual breather, it's like a prophecy, so it's probably like been misinterpreted by both sides. You know how it goes. I think the dual breather is just going to end up being the concept of dark breathers and light breathers teaming up, because if from what happened at the end of chapter 5 makes sense, then if a dark breather infuses their power into a light breather, the light breather can then use both powers and is effectively a dual breather to be like superhuman, right? And if you have a bunch of light breathers and dark breathers working together, there can be multiple dual breathers, right? So I think that's the whole dual breather concept as to what's going on at the end. I think that maybe at some point Liza is going to come in. This is a wild guess, and she's going to become sort of a vessel for people like Guyver and another dark breather to infuse into a very martially superior person and sort of make them the quote-unquote dual breather. So that's what I think is going to happen. And how is this going to end? I think whether one side or the other is not. No, I don't think one side or the other is going to win. I think whoever they raise up to be the dual breather is just going to squash both sides and end this war, and that's just how the book is going to end. Not very exciting. My prediction's not very exciting. The story might be wild, might be crazier than that, but extremely interesting concept. I really enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to finish this, and I hope you guys give it a shot too. So that's it for now. I'll see you next time.